Well, we've got some breaking news right now. Poland saying in the last hour that it's going to deliver all of its MiG-29 fighter jets to Ramstein Air Base, apparently agreeing to an arrangement that will allow it to swap the jets for F-16s, send the MiGs to Ukraine to battle Russian forces. But Fox News, Jennifer Griffin, she's reporting that the U.S. has not confirmed that it's willing to have Poland's MiG-29s fly to Ramstein. Remember, that's a U.S. and a NATO air base, because that puts the U.S. and NATO directly in conflict with Russia if those MiGs are then flown over to Ukraine. She's also saying Russian state news jumped on the Polish announcement. But again, this risks bringing in U.S. and NATO, the U.S. and NATO in general, into direct conflict with Russia. There's also more news. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, vowing not to give up the fight in an address to the UK Parliament. That was earlier today. Now, Zelensky also thanked President Biden for banning Russian oil. He urged other nations to follow suit. Here to discuss all these latest developments is former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor. It's great to have you here. First, I think this new reporting from Jennifer Griffin over on Fox News kind of does bring up a sensitive topic, but a big topic. How willing is the United States and NATO in general willing to go into this conflict between Russia and Ukraine without risking World War III, which frankly has been discussed?
It has been discussed, Cheryl, and no one is eager for World War III, clearly. I mean, no one wants, the Russians don't, we don't, NATO doesn't. This goes without saying. That said, we are supporting Ukraine in its battle. You have to call it heroic battle to defend itself, defend its sovereignty, defend its freedom. We're supporting that. And we've been providing weapons. It's not a surprise. We've been providing Stingers that shoot down aircraft. We've been providing javelins that destroy tanks. We've been providing weapons. So this possible deal on MiGs, you got to be careful you don't fly into airspace. But this deal could help the Ukrainians a lot.
Also, too, this economic penalty against Vladimir Putin, the Russian oil ban, petroleum products, wheat, coal. I mean, he's not just being frozen out from the U.S., but also from other parts of the world, which puts maybe us in a precarious position because of our oil supply. But at the end of the day, are these economic moves that we've made so far enough to make Putin blink?
So these economic steps that we've taken with European allies, not just Europeans, we're talking about Japanese, we're talking about Australians. These economic steps have been very hard, have been very harsh, and they're very, very damaging to the Russian economy. Now, that's sad to say, it's damaging the normal Russians. They're paying for the mistakes of their leaders. But yes, those are having a real effect on the Russian economy. And that's got to be a part of President Putin's consideration. But he's also looking at making slow progress, in some cases no progress, on the battlefield. His army, his military is not doing particularly well. He was expecting, I'm sure, to be farther along in this fight than he is. The Ukrainian military, again, has been putting up an amazing resistance to an overwhelmingly large military on the Russian side. So President Putin has a lot on his plate. He's also got problems at home. There are a lot of Russians that don't want this war. So he's got a lot to think about as he decides where to go from here.
Well, and also, too, what else can we do for the Ukrainians right now, weapons aside, which is a slippery slope, as I mentioned at the top of the interview? What else can we do to help the Ukrainians right now and/or the 2 million refugees that are now flooding into other countries surrounding Ukraine?
Well, you bring up a very good point. This is a humanitarian challenge. I hope it's not a disaster. And the reason it's not a disaster so far is that the Poles and the Romanians, the Hungarians, Slovaks, they have welcomed these Ukrainians into their countries, into their homes. And that's made it possible for the Ukrainian families to go into Europe, the rest of Europe, into NATO nations, while the Ukrainian men are staying to fight. And they are fighting, Cheryl. So that's one of the things that we are helping them fight. The other thing we can do, of course, is political support. That we can help them as we're standing with President Zelensky on the political side, on the economic side, on the sanctions side, and on the military side. So that combined support for President Zelensky and the Ukrainians as they fight for their freedom is what we're about.
Vladimir Putin, a lot of talk, a lot of rhetoric about his mental state right now, and also his end game in all of this. Is Ukraine enough for Vladimir Putin?
It's a good question on the mental state. There are smarter people than I am that have evaluated him both earlier and now, and they worry that he's unhinged. We've heard Condi Rice talk about this. We've heard Mike McFaul, who was on one of your shows just now. He's been concerned about the mental state. However, I would say that however different Putin's evaluations are, he's not suicidal. So I don't think he's prepared to do something that will get into the war that we talked about earlier, or will do something that is suicidal. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing.
I think about the oligarchs, the yachts, the real estate, the billions of dollars being held overseas. Many of those assets are either have been frozen or going to be frozen by our allies, by other countries. And at what point do the other the men that are as wealthy as Vladimir Putin finally get next to him and maybe, I don't know, maybe have him back down? We'll see. This is changing every day. Ambassador Bill Taylor, it's great to have you on the show. Appreciate your perspective, sir.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's good to be here.